We're here on the BrightHR page today to have a little bit of a look at an overview of the software. BrightHR is an employee management tool that you'll be able to use with your staff to communicate and share key documentation, log absences, and keep records of contract and pay histories. To be able to do all of that, the first step is we need to add our staff onto the system. We're going to head to the Employees tab on your left-hand panel and select the pink Add Employees button. This will bring us to a page where we can start filling in details for one of our employees. Do note that there is the option to bulk import employees now. Clicking onto that will give you a template to download, fill in, and then upload back into the system to make that process of adding your staff a little easier. For today, we're going to go back and add in an employee step by step. Put in our details of the employee's name, employee 1 for this example. And our next step will ask us for a few more details. Do note that there's only a couple that are required. The email address and the employment start date are two of those. I'm going to put in a placeholder email for the moment. So do note that you can change the email address after this point as well. So if you're following along and don't have the employee's profile, you can do up a dummy one similar to what I have, just as a placeholder. The start date can be backdated, can be future dated as well. It can be a roundabout date, as we can go back in to update this as and when needed. The rest of the information we can go through and update, things like contact numbers, addresses. You can do that now. If you're doing the bulk upload, you'll have the fields to copy and paste that information into the bulk upload to save you from typing it out here. But this is also available later on through the actual profile that this will set up. So for today, we're just going to save and continue for now. Our second step is going to ask us for employment details. It wants us to list location elements. So the first step is listing a place of work. Now, if you've been on the system before and added a place of work previously, you might be able to click into the drop-down and see the addresses you have listed. If the address associated to this employee is in that list, simply click onto it and it will assign it. If you don't see the address you're requiring through here, you can click the Add New button and add in your own address. The name should be your business name. So it could be your trading name or the entity name of the business. You do have the address line that you can fill in, but it is not required. The country and territory or state or region are required. If you have staff that work remotely, or field staff, and they don't necessarily come back to this key address, or you don't have a key HQ, we don't need to fill in an address line as such. We just want to assign them to say they work for this business, which is based in this country, this state, territory, or region. Save that into place. That's going to update for you. And over to the right, we're going to then fill in the public holidays observed for section. This one is important to line up with where the employee is based and the state, region, or territory that they observe those public holidays and legislation for. So it could be the same state as where the business is based, or it could be a different state. But this second box is important to match to where the employee does their day-to-day working activities. Then we have our employment details, and we're asked about the employee type. We have three options that we can select from: our fixed, full, or part-time, our short hours or variable, and our casual. The casual option is pretty straightforward. It's there for any casual employees. So one of the key things you can use to indicate this is they don't have access to annual leave or annual holidays, but they're employed by you, they will be that casual employee type. Now, if you are looking to ever add in people like bookkeepers, accountants, maybe you have a contractor that you want to share documents with and you're going to add them onto the system. If you do that, please use the casual heading. It's going to be the quickest way. It's also going to not apply something like an annual leave component onto the profile, so it won't make them look like an employee if they're not an employee. We then have the fixed full or part-time option and the short hours or variable. Now, both these options can be used for our permanent staff. What the system is actually asking here is, what does the working week look like? Is the working week for this individual fixed or is it variable? If it is fixed, we're saying that this employee works the same routine week on week. So every Monday of the year will look the same. Every Tuesday of the year will look the same in terms of start times and finish times. You have your standard operating hours. Now, this is excluding any overtime. So if you are in sort of like a trades business, for example, you may have something like a 7 to 3:30 as standard hours Monday to Friday, but then there's the ability for overtime. If overtime is the only component that we're taking sort of away from the fixed schedule, that is fine. They can be fixed still because we're talking into standard hours remaining the same. If there's variation on the weeks, maybe you have somebody who works 4 days a week, 3 days a week, part-timers or whatnot, but this schedule will differ. So they work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, and next week they'll work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That is when we're going to use the variable option instead. Any sort of variation to the week's schedule, whether it's start times and finish times could be adjusted. It's sort of, if the job finishes early, you can sort of go home. If it's busier, you're sort of, required to stay back. That's going to be the short hours or variable option. Also important that you use the variable option here if you have something like split shifts or overnight shifts. Now I'm going to show you both paths just to understand and get a better idea of what effects, I guess, come into play depending on what you're choosing. So let's start with short hours or variable. Selecting short hours or variable, when we scroll down, it's going to ask us some information about contract details. It has a reference to the leave unit. So on our system, we can do things like leave requests. So the system just wants to know if you want those leave requests to be displaying as days or as hours. Now, most payroll systems will display it as hours, so we have defaulted the option to be hours, but you can always check on your payroll system, how is the leave balance showing? If it's something like a 7.6 hours, if it's something like 8 hours, then you're going to be using hours here to keep it consistent. We then have the employee contracted hours per week. So this section is to input how many hours a week is this employee contracted to do. Maybe it's a 38 standard working hours per week. Therefore, our average working day would be that 7.6 hours. That's a common one. What we would do is we're going to put 7 in the first box and 36 minutes in the second box. That is to cover your 7.6 working hours. Just the conversion of the 0.6 of the hour is what 7 hours and 36 minutes will equal. Now, this average working day, just to put a bit of perspective on it, what this is going to do is if this employee that we're setting up goes to request annual leave, the system is going to say, okay, this employee wants to take a full day off work. On average, a full day of work is 7.6 hours. Is that how much we're deducting here? Now, if you've got a shorter day or a longer day, you're able to adjust that. The employee requesting it can adjust it, but ultimately you'll have that last sort of review to confirm, yes, this is 7.6 hours, or no, they just needed an hour off on this day, so that's how much leave will be requested. That's all this average working day will do, and both the contracted hours and average working day can be updated later on in the profile as well. The accrual rate, this you may need to check in with your relevant advice team if you're unsure of what your award or what the accrual rate is for you and this employee. We have left it as the default standard 4 weeks worth of leave throughout the year, but you've got your 5 weeks and 6 weeks should it be more as well. Now, at the very bottom of the page, we will have reference to an annual leave balance. So this is the system going to allow you to input what the current leave balance is for this individual employee. Now, obviously, in the first instance, it's not going to be accurate. You are going to need to input, or I guess cross-reference what your payroll system says that leave balance is. But then moving forward, if all the leave requests that are put into BrightHR are put into your payroll system, they should be lining up. So what I often suggest at this stage is we can actually put this annual leave balance to 0 hours and 0 minutes. So we've got sort of a null value there and we know we have to come in and update that. We would then hit save and continue and we'd be done setting up the employee's profile. But what I want to do is actually scroll back to the top of the page and now show you the fixed option. So we're going to select into fixed, full or part-time, and you'll notice it's a little bit different. We've got something called a working time pattern. So just to recap, the fixed, full or part-time option is what we will use for any employee who has a set schedule, a set routine, standard hours, meaning a working time pattern. Again, if you've been on the system before, you may have created a pattern already, in which case you can click into the drop down and you may see a couple of options like I have here. If you see the one that lines up, you can select it and it assigns that to that individual. However, if it's not quite in there, or if you have one of our default ones in there, maybe a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, we're going to need to create a new pattern. So clicking away from there, you'll see the pink button to add new, and we'll get this pop out. So we're going to create our own pattern. So I will call this, for example, a full-time pattern. What I want you to keep in mind with the pattern names is you can name them more generally if you have a lot of employees who will fall under that pattern. So something like this, where full-time hours, standard hours, ordinary hours. If all your team have the same schedule, then you may as well name the pattern something generalized as well. It means you create the pattern once and then you can assign it to all those team members. If it's more that you have, I guess, like a factory team, a sales team, an admin team, and maybe each of those sections of your business have different routines or have different standard hours, then you may create a pattern per team or per section of the business. If it's very unique and what one employee does compared to the next employee really differs, then you may look to just create the pattern after that employee's name. If it is going to be applicable to everyone, you can set it as a default. But the key thing here is that we then go to our times and breaks section, because we need to be setting up the start time and finish time to line up with what our team does. So let's say that the start time was actually 8:30. We can click onto the clock, change this from an 8 to from 9 to 8, 8:30, and make sure we click the apply button. The finish times as well can be adjusted. Keep in mind it's a 24-hour clock. There is the little converter at the bottom as well. Breaks are always any unpaid breaks, so you'll input that through there, and then you can highlight the days of the week that that applies to. So let's say it was Monday through to Friday. Now, if you are doing this, and you can see here at the bottom, I've got 5 working days totaling 37.5 hours. Again, if you actually want that to be a 38-hour week just to line up with what your team does, then what you'll need to do is just adjust the break to be that 54 minutes to reach that conversion of the hour. So what this will do is, again, it's linking it back to our leave requests. This is detailing that any employee on this pattern can only request the leave for the days of Monday through to Friday, the hours of 8:30 to 5, a 7.6 hour day each, because it's a total of 38 hours across the 5 days. That's what we've done here. So if an employee tries to request leave on a Saturday or Sunday, the system is going to tell them it's not a working day. You don't need to use annual leave for this day off. However, anything between Monday through to Friday, the hours of 8:30 to 5, the system is going to register that it uses their annual leave for an annual leave absence. Now, you may have a schedule similar to this, or maybe you have a shorter day on a Friday, or Tuesdays and Thursdays are a bit of a different time, but it's routinely always that schedule. Every week, each week, it's always that same routine. We can still set that up through here as well. All you'll need to do is click Add Another Time Frame. You'll notice that it gives you another row looking the exact same. We can make the adjustments that we need to make. So we can change around the start and finish times and apply. Maybe it's a 4 p.m. finish. Maybe it's a half-hour break. We're inputting this information just as a bit of a demo, and then I can select the days that this applies to. So let's say it's the Tuesday and the Thursday. So just again, what this will do is anybody on this pattern requesting leave on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, it will deduct a maximum of hours 8:30 to 5. But if it was a Tuesday and Thursday that they wanted to take off, then the maximum is 8:30 to 4 they can take off. So that's what this pattern is doing. Let's save that into place. Scrolling down, we then need to assign that pattern. So I inputted one from the list that I had before, but I'm going to select into this one. And I've created a bunch of different patterns just for the sake of showcasing what it all looks like. You'll obviously line this up with the correct hours that your employee works. Scrolling down, the information here is going to look very similar to what we saw just before. It's going to ask us about the leave unit, so the same process. If the employee's payroll system is displaying their leave as hours, you're going to want this to be shown as hours. The accrual rate we've left as a standard 4 weeks, but you can adjust and touch base with your advice team if you're unsure of what it should be. And at the bottom, we have the annual leave balance there as well. So again, it's left it as the default 0 hours, 0 minutes, so we can update it later on in the profile, which I'll show you shortly. But for now, we've added our employees into the system. We've put all the key info we need. We're going to hit save and continue. That's going to create the profile for us. So we're going to click add all to BrightHR and make sure this gets processed. Perfect. We click next and we've now got a pop-up that's asking us if we want to send the registration email to the employee. So at this stage, you can skip if you're not quite ready. You can send them later on, whether individually or in bulk. So I will show you that as well. Today, I'm going to skip. I've made up a bit of a dummy email, so we'll skip that one. And then we'll have a couple of options that we can do from here. So what we're going to do first is we're going to set up permissions, because permissions is going to instruct us on how we can use the software. So when we add employees into the system, you can see employee 1 is listed here. They do default to the lowest access, which is called employee. That means they see their information, their profile, their documents only. They're not going to see into any other employees' information. If you have somebody who's going to help you run the software, you then have 2 higher options to select from. You have a manager or an admin level. Now, admin is see and do everything on the system. It's the permission level I'm showing you today. If you see the permissions in settings, it means you are also an admin. So you'll be able to see into all profiles, all documents, including other admins, as well as changing people's access. The middle level is a manager level. Anyone you select as a manager, you will then be able to handpick who they manage. So whether it's, the office team, whether it's the sales team, or whether it's just employee A, B, and C that you select, this is going to allow you to give them access to profiles and documents, but only of those that they have as their direct reports. So for example, we can click in and select these 3 employees to say that this employee 1 will manage Mia, Ryan, and James, and add that into place. That means they'll view the profile, the documents, leave requests, of only these 3 employees. I will also make a note that if you're wanting your team, anybody on your team to create rosters, they will need to be a minimum of a manager level to create rosters as well. Over here on the right-hand side, you'll see the payroll box. This can be selected at any level. You can see it for the employee level, for the manager, and it's defaulted on for the admin level. What this does, if we switch on the payroll option, it actually gives you a prompt. This will give this individual the ability to pull any information they need for payroll purposes. More specifically, if we click OK, it's going to give them access to this payroll tab you see here on the left-hand side. I'll click into it now just to give you an overview. It basically is pulling all the information you might need to process payroll. Our system isn't a payroll system, but it can help provide the data you may need to process your payroll. So this is where you'll be able to pull reports you may need, things about absences, things about the rosters or the timesheets. It will also have an information checker to flag if there's any information missing on profiles, things like tax file numbers or IRD numbers, bank account details, things like that. It will flag through here as well. So if you've selected that box on the previous section in settings for the permissions, this is what it will give them access to as well. All right, we're going to head back to our employee section on the left-hand panel. We've added our employee and they'll now be here in our employee hub. So I might need to scroll down a little bit for us to see. There we go, we've got our employee 1. What you might notice is they've filtered under the heading of no team, but I do have other teams just above. So because no team isn't the nicest sounding team and you might want to create a bit of structure within your business, what we can do, scrolling up to the top of the page, we have a manage teams heading. So in here, we can add a new team or we can add and edit the existing teams. So if I wanted to add employee 1 into this existing team, I click onto the blue pencil, select employees and find them in the list. You can have people belong to more than one team as well. What it will do, if we head back to the employees tab, it's just going to create that structure for you. It's easier to find, particularly if you do have a number of employees, or if you just want that structure for reporting purposes, because in certain circumstances, you can pull reports on team basis. So if you just want to see the field staff reports versus the office staff reports, having these teams in place will help. I'll also just point out over here on the right-hand side, we have the prompt that 12 employees have not yet registered for BrightHR. I can click the view button and I can send the registration emails to everybody, or I can deselect everybody and just select the individuals that I would like to send to. Let's head into the employee's profile, because I will say that the profile will look the same in terms of an overall kind of the information you can list in here. It's just about personalizing it to the individual. So in here, you'll see the tabs going across the page. We have our absence tab here, and the absence tab is going to be a place where we can log and request leave. So you'll see here the heading of the annual leave balance. You'll see here about the leave, personal carers. Now in New Zealand's perspective, that will say sickness. That is our sick leave component. Let's say we want to update the annual leave balance first and foremost. We're going to do that under the employment tab. The reason it's stored under the employment tab to update is because this is a section that can only be edited by a manager of this employee or the admins of this employee. So filling in things about their job title, their rate of pay, again, if you're in Australia, the award and classification, that is left to the manager or admin to be doing. The same with the annual leave balance. If we need to update the annual leave balance, it's done by their manager or admin. We can click the edit button through here and we'll pretend that we had our payroll system with the hours accrued through there, and we can input the information We can list a reason for update, so payroll reconciliation, and then we can put in a note as well. Select that we understand we're updating this and hit submit. This is going to maintain a history for you. So you will see the history tab here if you're ever needing to see who's updated what. What this has now done, if we head back to the absence tab, you'll see we now have that annual leave. You'll also see a reference to about how many days that's going to equate to based on the pattern that we've inputted. If the employee wants to request leave, they'll have a similar layout. They can click onto the button here. I'll click into add annual leave and you'll see the layout through here. We've got a range of the different absence types. Now, do note that your casual staff won't have the annual leave section, as we mentioned, but they will have a heading called unavailable. So you can still prompt them to input when they're not available for shifts or for work through the BrightHR app. Let's leave this one as annual leave for today. And let's say that this employee wants to request leave for the end of the month. What you'll see is that the system has picked up that pattern we inputted, that 8:30 to 4, because we said Tuesdays and Thursdays were going to be that schedule. If I change this to be the Monday, you'll see there, and the end date to be the Monday as well, you'll see that it actually reflects an 8:30 to 5 based on the pattern we inputted. The projected leave balance is there, and we can input any notes that we may need. Now, the key thing here that I want to point out is this button of add absence. Now, as I said, I'm logged in as an admin to show you the full access of the software. So therefore, it's telling me that it's an add absence because it would have assumed that I've done the checks. If I'm inputting this information on behalf of the employee, it's assuming that I've done the checks, that this is good to go. So it's going to add it, doesn't pend any confirmation. However, if this was the employee inputting that information, this button would say request absence because that would then go through to their manager or the admin pending their approval. We'll add this one into place. We'll head back to the profile because I do want to show you that it will filter underneath with your leave taken. The leave balance will only update at the end of day. So just keep that in mind. So once the event has actually occurred, then the leave balance will update through there. Whilst it timelines here on the profile, over on the left-hand side, you might notice that there's a calendar there. The calendar is going to give us the overview, the visual overview of who's off when and why. Because as you can see at the top, we have a color coding component. Again, yellow will be sickness from a New Zealand point of view, and it's yellow for an AU personal carers leave process. Now, everybody does have view of the calendar. What differs is the color coding or that key up top. So admins will be able to see all absences and the reason why people are off. So they will see that color code for everybody. Managers will only be able to see the color coding for the staff members that they manage. However, they will see the individual name of the person who's off. So for example, on today's date, Ryan is off and I can tell that he's on annual leave. If I was a manager and I didn't look after Ryan, he was in a different team, I would just see Ryan's name there. I wouldn't see why he's off, just the ability to see that he is off. And that is to put a little bit of onus on the employees as well, that they can check the calendar. If they see that there are 2 or 3 people off on the same day, again, they won't see the reason why they're off, but they can see that there are 2, 3 people off on that day. It might mean that they know that their leave is less likely to get approved as well. All right, let's head back to the employee profile. We're going to have a bit of a look at a couple of the other areas here. In particular, the documents over here on the right-hand side. The document space here is a sharing spot for you and the employee. Because we're in the employee's profile, this document folder is particular to this individual. So anything that we have, like a contract, a license, certificates, anything like that for this individual employee is best to be uploaded through here because it will just be between yourself and this employee. If you have a manager in between, they will be able to access the information as well, but you have the ability to hide things from them too. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of a dummy upload to show you that. So we can either create a new folder or upload straight from here. I'm going to create a new folder first because I do want to show you a couple of options. So you can see here that we can name the folder. So maybe we'll say employment details and create. Do keep in mind that every time you create a folder or go to upload a document, the system is going to default the visibility to be just your admins and managers. Just in case you are uploading something that is sensitive, it is going to hide it from the individual employee. What that means, if this is a folder you want visible to them, or if this is a file you want visible to them, you're going to need to change that. Now on a folder, you're going to click the three dots on the far right, head into folder settings, and adjust the heading through here. So at the moment, we've got this visible to admins and managers. We can switch it to everyone with access. Now, don't let the everyone with access confuse you. Everyone with access just means everyone with access to employee one's folder. It's employee one themselves, it's any admins on the system, and any manager of employee one. However, if you're confused or unsure or don't want to take any risks, you can use the specific users option, in which case it actually shows you who is going to be seeing this document, and you can click and choose who you would like to see this. Now, at the moment, I've just got myself in there as I'm the only one who is actually registered, who is able to see this document on the system. So if I did have a manager of this employee or even employee one themselves, I can't make this visible to them just yet because they've not yet registered. There'd be nowhere for the notification to go through to. So what we're going to do is we're just going to save that into place for myself to be seen. Now within there, we can click into that and we can do the same thing. We can continue to create folders if we want subfolders within there, or we can just click the upload button and upload an individual file. We'll click browse files and we'll upload a document. Okay, let's say it's a contract. In here, it then gives us that same prompt, who should see this document, everyone with access or the specific users. Who do we want read receipts from? So the read receipt will give you the timestamp of when the employee has downloaded this document. And then the next row is going to ask you if you want an acceptance as well. So the acceptance is once the employee downloads the document, there will be a button to select I've read and understood. So you can apply both just for that extra backing to know that the employee has seen and cited this document. We also have a follow-up date. The follow-up date is going to be really important for anything that might have an expiry to it. Things like first aid certificates. You can upload a copy of the actual document or a photo of the document and then set the follow-up date. Now, my tip here is the follow-up date will come 7 days before the date you're inputting. So let's say we've put in the 30th of April as our follow-up date. We will get a reminder on the 23rd, so the week before, as well as the day of. So if this is something like a first aid certificate, you're going to need a little bit more than just a week's notice to get that renewed and set things up. You might want to use a sort of 1 to 2 month buffer, depending on what the actual expiry is and what the document or certificate is. So just keep that in mind. It is the 7 days before and day of whatever you're inputting as your follow-up date. And then we can upload that file. That's going to sit in there, and we can make any adjustments that we may require through the three dots as well. So if we hadn't set up a read receipt, if we needed to change that follow-up date, we can do that all through our three dots here. I will make a note at this point as well that the employees can upload into their own folder. So if you're asking for a copy of a license or whatnot, they can do this from their end, keeping in mind there's the BrightHR mobile app to make that even easier. Now, whilst we've had a look here at the documents folder from the employee's perspective and anything sensitive that is sort of one-on-one that you want to share with them, you may notice on the left-hand panel, we do have a document section there too. So I do want to point out that you will have a company-wide folder through here. Anything that is more generalized, your policies, your procedures, your handbooks, any health and safety information, you can actually store that in here, because what this will do is be a spot to upload that document once and everybody can access it. Read and accept receipts can come from everybody. You can see I've created a couple of folders for here as well. Let's upload the document, browse the file, choose the document, and you'll see it listed in here with the same prompts, but this time when we're saying everyone with access, we mean everyone in the company, because we are in the company-wide folder. Now, your company-wide folder should reflect your company name or entity name. That is going to be the folder that everyone can access. You can apply your read receipts, your acceptance receipts, your follow-up dates in the same way. It just means you don't have to upload the handbook each time individually for your 10, 15 employees. You upload it in here once, they can all access it, and as people are onboarding into the business, they all automatically will have access to that document as well. We'll upload that too. There was one other folder I wanted to mention, again on the left-hand side here of documents, there is the admin documents folder. This one is going to be where you want to store anything more sensitive, because it's the admins only on the system that will see into here. So things that are a bit more sensitive, like I've got in here sales reports, maybe it's insurances for the business or whatnot, you can file them in here and only the admins will be able to see those. Perfect. A couple of areas that we're going to have a look at today. We're going to jump into the e-learning section next. This is where we have a few training modules from a HR perspective. So you'll be able to view all the different courses under the All Courses tab. We do have them here as sort of overviews, awareness building courses. We have a few manager specific courses as well. So not everybody will see this course, only those that you've marked with the ability to assign courses will see this. And we've even got a more recent one with the right to disconnect for the Australian side of things. So these are linked into legislation updates. And when we're wanting to assign these to the staff, you may see I have an assignment and a reporting tab. If you don't have this on yours, you'll want to go into the permissions section and add a learning manager. It's only those that are learning managers that will be able to assign the training modules to the staff. So once assigned as a learning manager, you should then have an assignment and reporting heading. You'd head to assignment when you want to assign a course to an individual. So we click the Assign New Courses button, and it's basically like a follow the prompts. You'll choose which course you want, click Next, choose which employees you'd like to assign that to, click Next, and assign a due date, and assign that course. That will send the employees a notification. So it's going to be really important that they get registered first for these notifications to go through. They will then see it similar to how I have here for the Assign to Me tab. It'll be in a bit of a list view with the option to start the course and then the ability to mark it as completed as well. When they go to mark it as completed, they will need to upload their completion certificate here as well. Now, from your perspective, you'll be able to go to the reporting section to keep an eye on which courses have been done and which employee has done which course. If you're needing reference to their completion certificates, you can click into their name and you'll be able to see the tabs with the completed and incomplete courses. It will also give us the ability to view the certificate. The next section we're going to have a look at is on our homepage. I want to make a reference to these two tiles that we have here. We have our Bright Lightning section where we can ask any HR queries you have. Now, you may have access to your relevant advice team. We still want you encourage you to call through to your advice team. But if there's a smaller question, maybe a definition, or you're wanting a bit more background on something you did speak about with our team, you have this section to ask those questions. Basically, instead of Googling a question, we now have Bright Lightning. You can either type in a keyword or you can start asking a question and you may get a couple of prompts. So let's type in something like redundancy. You can see a couple of options come up. I might select into what are the main steps in a redundancy and ask that question. The system's going to come up with a bit of an answer for me, might be lengthy, might be small, but you'll have a bit of information there. What you want to keep an eye on is on the right-hand side, it will tell you if this is a high-risk subject, and it will be sort of a definite confirmation that you should call the advice team to talk more into this. Just even with things that aren't listed as high risk subject, if you're unsure or needing clarification based on your business and your industry, again, reach out to your relevant advice team. The contact numbers are always there. The other thing that I wanted to talk into was Bright Exchange, and Bright Exchange is our marketplace. It's our bit of an advertising tool that we have for you to use with your staff to share sort of employee perks, find some discounts, but you'll also be able to advertise your business. So let's select into advertise and find deals. I'm currently on the Australian side of things. We can switch this across to the other territories as well, but the layout will be the same. It just may be the deals that differ. So we've got a few spotlight offers of discounts to different events. So we've got things like the Cinema Society. We've got things like theatre productions. Your team will have access to explore these as well, or through the BrightHR app or through the website as I am here. If you're interested in using any of these, you can click into it. It may be that it's a sort of code to use at upon checkout, or it may be about visiting the website and it may be an element of a membership. So the one with the movie tickets, for example, is signing up to the Cinema Society for those discounts. This is something that you can use with your team, encourage them to explore the different offers. You can filter by different categories or different regions. And as we scroll down, we also have tiles here where there may not always be discounts. These are other businesses that use the BrightHR software as well. They still want to advertise their services, but they may not have a discount to give. So when we click into these, it's just a link back to a website or a social media page. This is available to all those that use BrightHR. If you would like an ad for your business as well, whether there's an offer or not, you can either create the advert up top yourself, or you can send us a message and we would be happy to create that for you. I will say you will then have that stored in your system. You'll have a little My Advert section here so that you could make ongoing changes as needed. But definitely a good section to explore and give reference to your staff as well. We'll head back to BrightHR. That's a bit of an overview I wanted to give for today. The last thing that I'm going to mention is in our Actions button here. The Actions button is just a quick way to get around the software. If you know that you're needing to add an employee or add an annual leave request, there's a bit of a shortcut through there. But what I really wanted to highlight is the option to request an appointment. Request an appointment is a good resource to keep in mind if you're needing assistance and you don't know where to go. If you don't know if it's an advice question, if it's a software question, you've got feedback to put in, you can list the information through here and it will come to our team to help divert it to the correct team to get you an answer. So do keep that one in mind as well. But that's our BrightHR system today. Hopefully you've gotten a bit more information, a bit more insight into how you can be using it and setting things up. Do explore, do follow along, and feel free to contact us with any questions you may have ongoing.